it were. So today we're going to be looking at copywriting and improving the content through your copy. This helps business owners, this content will help business owners improve their copy. It creates compelling copy, so not just kind of like we do IT solutions. I was talking to Paul about this sort of thing before we started. It's about using emotional triggers, things that make people really react, because if people react, you can get them to be motivated to do something. If your content and specifically your copy is ho-hum, people will go meh and they won't react. So it's about those emotional triggers that you can pull and give copy that visitors actually respond to, and therefore improve the results from your copy. Okay, so I want to sort of explain how this talk sort of fits in with what we've done so far. And Matthew Birch came and gave us a talk on 24th of April about improving your images. Well, this is improving your copy. So it's allied to that talk in that he was talking about improving images. I'm going to be talking about improving your copy and your content. So this talk is like Matthew's talk about images. Got it? Good. So I'm Stuart. If you don't know who I am, I've spent 20 odd years optimizing websites. I specifically focused on WordPress 10 plus years ago, but the majority of the content talk will apply to any website. I'm currently managing 52 plus sites. I've written a book on optimization. I mentor and train business owners through the Hub, and I'm a Hub host and a team member. So you probably know that already, but I just thought, just get it out there for anyone who's that guy. This content comes with a bit of a warning. Some of this stuff could be used by somebody unscrupulous unethically. Okay, so if you're looking at it and thinking, oh, that's a bit contentious, that's because it can be used unethically, and people do use it unethically. You know, unscrupulous salespeople, con artists, that's not you. So take it and use it how it fits in with your business and your ethics, all right? That's all I'm saying. So if there's anything in here and you think, oh, that's a bit sharp, you've had the warning. So, website content. First we need to look at what Google wants, because if you understand what Google wants, you can create content, specifically the words, that Google will respond to. Google wants a great user experience, or giving users exactly what they want, because Google wants content that meets their users' needs. So it's not about creating content for Google specifically, it's about creating content for human beings on the other side of that screen. Okay? So just because Google is the one putting you in first place, Google will reward websites that give people what they want. Okay? So you can almost ignore Google, just give your users what they want and Google will respond to that. Yeah? There are some steps that you can take to make sure that that content is presented in the best way possible that Google will like and your end users will like, but basically if you start writing copy specifically for Google, your end users won't respond to it because it will sound like complete garbage, and if you read it out loud it won't sound like any conversation you've ever had. And that's a good test to see if you're writing great copy. Is it the sort of thing you would say to somebody face to face? Yeah? And if you can read it out and it sounds conversational and appropriate to your audience, then you're probably on the right track. Okay? And if you're getting stuck when you're writing copy, sometimes it helps if you just dictate what you would say to somebody face to face and then transcribe it and then sort of pretty it up a little bit. But that can be a really good way, rather than staring there at that blinking cursor thinking, oh, I've got to write something. But we'll get into that. So I want to define what content is. Anything used in your marketing collateral can be considered content. Specifically online, that's websites, emails, social media. Offline, it might be brochures, pamphlets, and sales letters. The two worlds cross over, because usually what you're using offline, you'll be using a version of online and vice versa. Okay, so it matters in both of those channels, the offline and the online, so that you get it right for whoever the audience is. What your content isn't is not entertainment or public service. Okay? Every single time somebody comes in touch with what you're doing, it's sales and marketing. That doesn't mean to say it can't be entertaining, but that's not its primary reason for existing. Okay? So what you're trying to do is engage someone, raise their interest, and make them take action. Yeah? So therefore, your content creates a reaction. It's the reaction in your target audience that makes them take the next step. So understanding what your customer's journey is likely to be allows you to write more effective copy, because you can get them to make the next step that you want, which might be filling in a form, signing up to a newsletter, picking up the phone. Yeah? So you only have words and pictures to do this. That's all you've got, words and pictures. And people say to me, "Oh, Stuart, but what about video and audio?" Yep, well, video is moving pictures and audio is spoken words. So it's words and pictures. Okay, got you covered. So your content, words or pictures, should create a reaction in your target audience or the visitors to your website that makes them take that next step that helps you to sell what it is that you're going to sell. Now, the content must match the user's intent. Okay, so when somebody goes to a search engine, they have an intent. Okay, so when somebody comes to your website, they have an intent. When somebody picks up the phone, they have an intent. If you understand what that intent is at each stage, you can write copy which supports the user in taking that next step to fulfill their overall intent. So it's a little bit like when somebody makes an appointment with a doctor, they're not just going to have a chat with their doctor. Well, not unless they're my mum who likes to get out and have a chat to the doctor. But they would talk to the doctor about a problem they have and ultimately get a prescription or some kind of treatment that solves what they're suffering. So their intent, their global intent is to stop suffering or to treat the condition they have. There are smaller intents along the way, but they all serve the greater intent. So what is your overall customer's intent? And if you can summarize that and share that with them, that you understand what they're trying to do, your copy will be more effective. Are you with me so far? Fantastic. So, whatever the content, your user's reaction should be, what do I do next? Okay, so when Robin Adams came, he was talking about what's next. And that's exactly the mindset. If my readers, visitors come to this website and read this, what's next? What was the next thing that they would do? If it's to read it and there's no next step and you're not directing them as to what to do, then you've immediately created fog, you've created something that's unclear, they don't know what to do. So generally speaking, people will do the only thing that makes sense to them, and that's leave. So even if it's just that they come to your website to read a blog, at the bottom of the blog, you should either have other examples of things that people have read when they've come here, you know, similar posts here and here, or if you want to get, you know, our 10 top posts as a PDF, sign up to our mailing list. There should always be something that they can do to take the next step, because you're trying to get them to trust you to the point where they'll pick up the phone or send you an email or buy a product you have on your website and take that next step. Okay, so what do I do next should be answered on every page. So you have to always think, what is the purpose of your copy? Okay, your copy should have a purpose. A little bit like getting in the car and driving somewhere. You tend to have a purpose for why you're going to wherever the destination is. Okay, and it's the same with your copy. Quite a lot of the times, and I can tell when somebody hasn't got a purpose for their copy, because it tends to waffle, it tends to take you around in circles, and it uses the words like solutions. We provide you with solutions. Well, I'm sorry, you've heard my rant about solutions if you've come here before. It's not an appropriate word to be using unless you're a chemist and you're talking about dissolving a solid into a liquid. If you know what your purpose is for your copy, write it down, okay? Because the purpose of your copy is probably the overall benefit to the reader, okay? If by reading this somebody can do X, Y, or Z, well, that's a good reason to tell them to read what you're doing, which is a good reason to have it in the headline, yeah? we're going to go through headlines in some depth, because headlines, David Ogilvy said that 80% of people will read your headlines. Yeah. So 80% of your money is spent when the person has read the headline. So make it a really good one. We can spend hours on looking at tweaking a headline or an email subject line to maximise the impact. Because if they haven't read the headline, there's very little chance that they'll read the rest of your copy. So you have to think that your headline is like an advert for the rest of the copy that falls underneath it. And using the same method that newspapers use is a really good tactic. So they have a headline, then they have a summary paragraph, subheader, and then they fall into the story. If you read that headline and that paragraph, you should be able to then have a conversation about that story, at least your reaction to it. Yeah, you know the facts, you know roughly what it's saying. So think about doing that, especially on pages which are maybe more technical. You know, by the time you finish reading this, you'll know how to do X, Y, or Z, so let's get into it. That's a good way of sort of telling people the reason for reading the rest of that copy. It might not be the headline, but it is definitely a good starting point to get people prepared for what they're going to read. So knowing what the purpose of your copy is good, and an example would be that, like I used at the top of this talk, it's to help business owners improve their copy. Okay, you guys are business owners, that's why you're here, and you're here to improve your copy. That's a great headline. Tells you exactly the benefit of staying in the room. Okay, and I primed the pump early with that because I stated it in the intro. There's that exact slide. Help business owners improve their copy. Immediately tells you what you need to know, and everything else follows from there. So as I said, the headline is an ad for your content, but you've got to keep it short and simple and to the point. Okay, I think The Economist did some research into this, or The Spectator. Memory's a bit fuzzy, but they found that 7 to 10 words was the maximum amount of words that people can hold in their mind at one point and make sense of. So a headline of 7 to 10 words is usually a good place to start. That's a broad generalisation, but it's a good place to start. Within the headline, you want to mention a benefit or a reason to read on. Like I said, it's an advert for the rest of that content. Identify the value of that to the reader. So, you know, helps business owners to improve their copy. Well, there's the value right there. Yeah, identifies who the audience is. Oh, but yeah, I'm a business owner. Oh, I want to improve my copy. You know, the head's nodding. They're going to continue to read or to continue to engage. And it's a really good place to make offers that are congruent to the end user. Yeah, depending on the rest of the content of the page, you can have the offer as the headline. Yeah, 20% off if you do these things. Read on to find out how to save 20% off your next order. That's a great place to have an offer. But lots of times, business owners, they get into the fine-grained detail and they forget to mention the benefit to the end user of sticking around or reading that content, or putting some kind of guarantee and hiding it away. And we had one customer had 100% money back guarantee, and you only found that out after you submitted the form, the inquiry form. It's like, so that was moved right prominently onto the homepage, and a big decal was put, you know, 100% money guarantee, and read rates went up. You know, we could tell because people were scrolling and clicking through on the link. So, you know, if people are clicking through on the link, they're scrolling down, which means they're probably reading. So people do engage with that kind of stuff. So here's an example that sort of talks about those things. Thinking of buying a car, read this and save. I use that exact formula. Yeah. Thinking about buying a car. If you are thinking about a car, you're nodding. Yes, yeah, that's me. Yeah, yeah. Read this and save. Oh, okay. Yeah. It's told you what to do. This is what you do next. Yeah. That's a great, great headline for making people read what follows. Why healthy people die in their 40s? Well, if you're in your 40s, you know, you'd be reading that on. And you might think to yourself, most people like to think of themselves as healthy, yeah? As they're tucking away the second donut, they're still thinking to themselves, yeah, I'm quite healthy, you know, I was just only 2 today. But that's a great one for someone like Francis, yeah? You know, and we'll get into why negativity sells in a little while. And a famous one, I think it's from the 50s, rob banks legally. Okay, that immediately is like, what the what? And this was used in a business journal. So you could imagine the kind of engagement that you had. And it was selling a plan that you could use to make money out of banks. And the use of the word rob banks is, you know, that's incendiary. That makes people go, oh, that's illegal. But doing it legally, how would I do that? You know, everyone's a bit curious as well. So think about putting the most important benefits in the headlines. Yeah, you don't want to list features. You want to show benefits, and you turn features into benefits by using which means that, okay, or which means. So the example that I've used before, and I always use, a young guy goes to buy a car. He's got a young family, and he wants a safe car. So he goes in and says to the salesman, I want a safe car for my young family. Well, the salesman's clued up, he knows his stuff, but he's not a very good salesman. And he says, oh, this car has got ABS brakes. Well, that isn't a benefit, that's a feature. Yeah? ABS brakes is a feature of that vehicle. Okay? There's no benefit to the end user for knowing that that car has ABS brakes unless he understands what ABS brakes do and the function of ABS brakes. But actually, the salesman's a little bit better than we gave him credit for, and he knows how to turn a feature into a benefit by saying ABS brakes, which means your car will stop quicker in the wet. Oh, tick. That's a benefit to me. I'm looking for a safe car, and I've told you I'm looking for a safe car. But the salesman's even better than we originally thought he was, and he knows how to turn it into a value, yeah, because he ties it back into the value that the customer's given him, which means that it stops quicker in the wet, which means this car is safe for your young family. So it takes that benefit and turns it into a value. So if you know your customer really well, you can take those benefits and write about them in terms of the value to them. Yeah. So if people value quick delivery, yeah, before you read this, know that all our products are available next day delivery. Oh, okay, all right, I can read this knowing I can have that tomorrow. Brilliant, fantastic. So turning a feature into a benefit, read your copy and see if you're writing about features and not benefits. So an example here, talking about a cup of coffee. Okay, now some features of a cup of coffee. We don't tend to think of buying a cup of coffee as something that would be feature and benefit driven, but we kind of do. Features of a cup of coffee: recycled cup, strong coffee, ground beans. Okay, those are things that go into it. But so what? Well, to turn those features into benefits, recycled cup, which means that it's kind to the environment. Now, kind to the environment is something you can talk about, yeah, without having to talk about recycled cups. Strong coffee, kickstart to your day, you know. Give people that impression that this is a nice, strong cup of coffee. And ground beans, which means, you know, French toast taste, or fresh roasted on the premises, or something that tells people that you take care and pride in the preparation of your product. And those three benefits say much more to the end user than recycled cup, strong coffee, ground beans. Yeah? So here are some examples used in actual headlines. How I doubled my money with Facebook ads. So if you're looking to create Facebook ads, that one would be of interest to you. For at-risk youths, learning digital media is a luxury. Now, this was for a very specific target audience that was talking to at-risk youths. So using that in the headline prepares them to understand, oh yeah, you know, oh, we deal with at-risk youths, so this would be of interest to us. New shampoo leaves your hair smoother, easier to manage. Yeah, simple things that people are looking for, you know, easy to manage hair. I've never had a problem with my hair, it's never been out of control, so I don't know about that, but new shampoo leaving your hair smoother, easy to manage, if your target audience is looking for that, it's a great thing to put on a bottle or to put in a headline. So the benefit gives the visitor a clear value in continuing. So Making your copy relevant, echoing what's in the visitor's environment is a good way to make your sales message heard. So if your target audience are, let's say they're in the football world, okay, when the World Cup is on, they are going to be totally focused on that event. It's an event which just takes over. So if you try to do something that wasn't allied to that to sell to those target audience, you kind of wouldn't be talking about what's on their mind. So it would be this other thing over here. But if you tie it into it, and it's why brands do this, if you tie it in to that event that's happening in their world that's all consuming, you get a chance to get your message heard. Yeah. So think about what's going on in your target audience's world. So news that your target audience cares about, new stuff that makes a difference to them or that is going to make a difference to them. Is there legislation that's happening? Yeah, your target audience are landlords and they're looking at the tenant fee ban. That's going to be right on the front of their mind. So if you put in a marketing piece and it doesn't talk about that, you're immediately at a disadvantage because you're talking about something which isn't at the front of mind. But if you say tenant fee ban front of your mind, read on to find out how you can come out of it the other side smiling, that's a great way of sort of positioning your copy to be relevant to what's going on in their minds. Does that make sense? Yeah. Yeah. You can use newsjacking. Now, I thought about trying to cram in newsjacking. It's not something that's easily delivered in a few words. Effectively, it's using secondary commentary on news events to get found by reporters that then leverages your business in the PR sense. There is a URL. This talk will be available for download, and I've put the URL. There is a complete website for it. It's called newsjacking.com. And the guy who does it, he explains it in a much clearer way than I would fumble through it in a couple of slides. But newsjacking is a great way, and he gives you some examples and he gives you some techniques of piggybacking on what's happening in your industry or what's happening in the national news to get found. Effectively, reporters want commentary on stuff, and sometimes they're looking for an expert, and if you've already got a piece out there, then there's a better chance of them finding you and talking to you. And introducing new features and discounts. Okay, if you're communicating with people, your copy should be talking about something new, something that you're raising to their attention, something that they didn't know, something surprising, something shocking, something interesting, but something new. Yeah, there are usually two ways to do something new, or the last time you will be able to get this. Yeah, so something that is scarcity. So introducing new features and discounts is a really great way of having a reason to communicate with people. And that's another really good way of getting attention, is by having a reason that's congruent. So be clear about your main benefits. Here are some examples. House prices on the rise. We show you how to save. Okay, that was for an investor's portfolio of properties. Controversial new EU law creates legal tax loophole. Again, an investor's piece, the headline for an investor's journal. And stockbrokers take a kicking in the face with our app. Okay, and this was again a different investor's journal. But what you will notice is that the headline is specific to a target audience. They've worked out who is reading their piece, and the audience is being accommodated right there in the headline. Using questions to increase curiosity. So putting a question into the headline that echoes something in the reader's mind will immediately tie you into their thought patterns, being congruent to what they're thinking. Something your reader wants to know is usually a good place to start. So something that they may be researching, something that they're looking for. You tie the question to your main benefit. We'll show you some examples of that. And you can question truths, myths, and cliches in your industry. Okay? Especially if you take an alternative stance. For a number of years, I used to say, stop doing SEO. And of course, that made me completely different to all the SEO agencies that were saying, you need to do SEO. And my whole shtick was, stop doing SEO, we'll do it for you. So But it got people, tied people in and got them reading and got them interested rather than trying to sell them SEO services. I was telling them to stop doing SEO. Immediately there's that question mark in their head. What's all that about? So here are some examples. Are you too clever for success? That was one used in the 50s, selling a distance learning course. But it's quite interesting that it ties into some of the emotional triggers that we go through. It ties into people's own insecurity. So you don't think that your target audience are immune to being influenced by these emotional triggers, yeah? Because even billionaires get up in the morning and have to clean their teeth and put their trousers on one leg at a time. Want to immediately reverse all your health issues? Okay, so again, you're selling to a target audience who are perhaps, looking for health benefits. And 6 types of investors, which group are you in? Now that is a really, really good headline, because if you are an investor and you've come to a page for information, well, of course, it's natural to say, well, what type of investor are you? Before we give you any information, we've got to ascertain which type of investor you're in. And so the rest of the page follows from that. You have an introductory paragraph explaining we need to know these things before we can give you some advice. The advice is broad and generic. If you want specific advice, give us a call. But take the test. They take the test, they submit the form, they get the PDF with the information in it, and you can then structure the PDF to direct them to give you a call, and you've collected their data and are able to then market to them. So really does determine how the rest of the page is used, how well your headline is structured. Yeah. So you want to prompt 2 types of thinking. The either yes, tell me more, where somebody leans into what it is you're saying, or skepticism. Yeah, right. And you click on it anyway and go to read. What kind of fool is this? Click. And, actually, that's quite interesting. Oh, yeah. So both of those are valid reactions. The point to it is there is a reaction. Yeah. If somebody goes, oh, well, I don't really care what type of investor I am, not interested, probably not good for your target audience. You don't want people, if you're selling investments, who are disengaged from the process. Appealing to the reader's thirst for knowledge. It's funny how that Pavlovian trigger, thirst. Thirst for knowledge. If your reader has questions, then show them that you have the answers. Outline to them what they will learn. So, in your headline, in your introductory copy, try to tell readers that they can learn something and what it is they can learn. As we said, as I said at the top of this, a headline that tells them, read on, is like the ad for the rest of your copy. The same with your intro paragraph, you will learn these things. Putting that right front and centre and engaging your reader with that kind of level of detail gives them a benefit immediately. You're going to learn this. You're going to walk away with this. Who here knows what TLDR stands for? Too long, didn't read. Okay. Think about your reader as being in a time crunch. What could you put in the first paragraph that meant that they could go away from that article, still understand 80% of it, maybe not the fine-grained detail, but makes you seem useful and makes their lives a bit better? Consider doing that. Try to make it sound easy to learn, so don't use long technical words, and we were talking about this with Paul. Use jargon that is appropriate to your target audience, but don't make assumptions about your target audience's level of understanding. Yeah. You don't need to include the entire process. Yeah. You need to include enough so that the person can take that next step. All right. You can give people an overview and say at the end of this you're going to be able to do X, Y, or Z, but try to break it down into small chunks so that the person can progress quickly. Yeah? Even if it's like you've got a long article, you could then break that down into smaller articles and put those articles on different pages that would break that big thing down for people who only wanted to know that little thing that's within it. And describe the results from learning. Yeah, great sales process is to paint the future after they've used your product or service. Feel, felt, found is the usual technique when people put up objections. Lots of our customers feel this way when they haven't bought from us before, but what they felt was complete relief, and what they found was that all their problems went away. Yeah. So it's a good way to think like that in your copy. You know, what are people feeling right now? Yeah. What have other people who have gone through the process felt, and what have they found at the end of it? Yeah. Putting that into your copy will allow you to take people on a mental journey through the process. So describing the results from learning can be very useful. Some examples. Twitter goes public, 21 things you should know. Okay, so if you were thinking about investing in Twitter, then that's a really great headline. Numbers in headlines, we go into this in a bit, but numbers in headlines is a really useful thing. Shows specificity. Tips to show anybody how to make money online, guaranteed. Okay, so the guarantee is right there in the headline. Thousands already earn online, and so can you. So what you're saying is this process is working. Now, if these headlines all feel a bit kind of spammy and a bit kind of like, yeah, just a bit clickbaity, that's why it works. Do you know what I mean? It's like, make it appropriate to your business. Don't just take it and turn it into, but they work because of all of the things that I'm telling you. You know, they have people's best interest, self-interests in mind. They offer a benefit. They offer an easy path through. So how-to or things you should know headline works well, especially if you've got a how-to article. You know, how to do this sort of thing, how to do that sort of thing. Good way to precede it in the headline. Okay. This is a good one. Appeal to the reader's thirst for knowledge. If you tell people what to do, they are more likely to do it. And so that also works for headlines. So if somebody is looking for an answer, telling them to do something to give them that answer is much more likely to have an outcome that you want. So you can create a headline that is a call to action. Yeah? There's no rules to say. You can't say, you know, read this page and then click the button and we will solve your problem. You know, you want to future pace what those people on your website are doing, what those people interacting with your business are doing. Be direct. You can be direct and demand they take action. Twitter found that you were 27 times more likely to have your tweet retweeted if you included the words, please retweet. Yeah? It's funny how telling people what to do makes them think it and do it. Detail the penalty for not taking action. Yeah? If you don't do this, this is what's going to happen. It doesn't just have to be in the headline. You can explain it in some detail in the body copy. You know, this is happening, tenant fee ban. If you don't take action, this is what you can face. And we're not making this up because here's the research that from the people who have looked at the future and this is what they've said. It's a great way of motivating people to take action. Yeah? The thought of a future negative event. And you can ask, why is that? Yeah? You can ask them, so you're not going to take action. Why is that? Yeah? And although it's in writing, so it's not in person and you can't hear what they're saying, you can sort of pre-guess at least 80 to 90% of the specific answers that people will have. So why is that? Question mark. Maybe you think this, maybe you've thought that, maybe you've said this. So it's a great way to start to think about potential objections and work those into your copy. Because that's what people will have in their head as they're reading it, their objections to what you're saying. So you have to silence those objections, or at least acknowledge them. Having a good sort of solid understanding of your topic, you should be able to answer those negativities from a target audience. So appealing to the thirst for knowledge, some headline examples. 3 things you must do when saving. Read now. Okay? immediacy there. Read now. Don't wait. Read now. Download our free software and lose weight easily. Okay? So thinking about the weight loss, how does that happen easily? How does that happen? And challenge us to save you money. Call us now. Okay? So that was a money-saving website. And they did have all of the various calculations and all the rest of it. But you just want somebody to pick up the phone and talk to an operator, because they're much more likely to fly through the process a lot quicker. And people, you know, once they've engaged and you're having a telephone call, you've got a much better chance of closing that sale. So the whole point of challenge us to save you money, okay, all right, yeah, I need to save some money here, I'll call you. So don't be afraid to put a call to action right there in the headline. Okay, and answer that thirst to knowledge. I want to do something. When do I do it? Oh, I'll do it now. Revealing hidden knowledge is quite useful. We'll look at this in the emotional triggers section in a minute. Using words that offer insights. Using things like discover and not learn. Learn is fraught with friction, mental friction. I've got to do this thing. I've got to learn. Yeah. It feels like a job to do or a task to achieve. But discovering something, oh, that's easy. I just look and there it is, it appears. So using words to make things seem easier is a good strategy. And part of the documents that will come with the talk document is a dictionary of copy words to elicit certain reactions and certain emotions. So there is a good place to start. There's about 700 words in there. A good place to start to make you think words that you can use instead of happy or now, you know. What was that? Yeah. Delightfully underpriced. Yeah. Secrets. The word secrets makes the person an insider, or make them feel like that there's something that they don't know. Again, the emotional triggers we look at, we go into that in quite some detail. Quick fixes offer speed and time savings. Steps, easy to do, easy to understand. Tips and tricks offers simplicity and ease. So there are ways to frame your content and specifically your headlines with these words to give people the idea of what will follow. Yeah. So some examples here. Little known food helps you lose weight fast. Okay. Discover what doctors do when they are sick. Yeah. And every entrepreneur regrets not doing this sooner. So there's things in there that talk to the time saving and insider secrets. You don't have to actually use those words, but you can allude to those things. And so curiosity is a big driver of interest, and it's very compelling. If somebody's got an unanswered question in their head, especially if that unanswered question is echoed on your website or in your copy, and makes them go, oh yeah. They're much more likely to think that you've got the solution to the problem that they hold if you're also echoing the same questions. Mentioning speed and highlighting time savings can offer a really compelling headline or reason to read. Offering a comparison and showing differences. So, you know, this is what it's like with our service, without our service, and this is what it's like with our service. I think it was Ogilvy did some research back in the 60s and was looking at what made an effective advert, because he was a big fan of Claude C. Hopkins' scientific advertising, which was written in the 1920s about taking steps to measure the outcome of adverts. Don't just put out an advert and expect it to work. What sort of adverts work better? So this information has been ticking around for at least 100 years. And what Ogilvy found was that adverts that had the biggest impact were adverts that showed an A-B a before and after, an A and a B, a control and a difference. And it was because it proved, there was visual proof that what you were talking about worked. Yeah, here's the clothes before. I mean, we all remember the washing powder ads, and they still kind of do it. Here's the powder. Here's the washing before using our stain block technology, and here's the stain afterwards. And this one's all white and shiny, and that one still see the outline of the stain. You know, it proves what you're saying. So think about how you could position your business, your goods, your services with an A/B, a before and after. Yeah. I mean, when you start to break it down, there are only a few things that advertisers use. They use some strategies, but they're all based on the same kind of principles. And once you start breaking it down and start subcategorizing it, you realize that actually quite a lot of the ads are the same, or using the same mechanisms. They've just got different words and different pictures. That's what it's back to. Precision to show accuracy. So something has to be, say you've got something that does a process in a specific period of time, say 5 seconds, it's much more believable to say that this does it in 5.1 seconds. Makes you appear to have much more control over what you're writing about, what your process is doing. I would suggest that it needs to be true. All advertising needs to be legal, honest, decent and true. But, you know, don't round it down just because it makes it look nicer. Yeah, that accuracy speaks to people as somebody who knows what they're talking about. Detailed duration. You know, this will take this length of time, but will save you this amount of money. Yeah, you can break all of this down. It doesn't have to all be in the headline. You can break down what you do into various sections and put subheaders so that people can skim down and go, oh yeah, I'm interested in time saving, and they can read the portion of text that's relevant to them. And highlight how time will be saved. Yeah, by doing this process, you get this much time saving. This is how it works. And if you do have something that saves people's time and you're not putting it in your copy, you're really missing a trick. So some examples are 6 instant confidence boosters. Okay, so the thing that's working there is instant. Yeah, things that you can do right now that are going to give you a confidence boost. Parenting Guru, from chaos to calm in 21 days. You immediately get the sense that there's a process behind this. Yeah, that 21 days is a very specific length of time. Yeah, not a month, not 3 weeks, 21 days. And actually, what we've found with testing is it's better to use a bigger number. So you could have used 3 weeks, but it's more specific to say 21 days, and 21 looks bigger than 3 anyway. It depends on what you're positioning and how you're positioning it. And the 4-hour work week. Everyone knows the Tim Ferriss book, The 4-Hour Work Week. It's right there in the title of the book, 4-Hour Work Week. What? There's an instant curiosity of how does he achieve that? By working very hard, actually. Highlight how using your product and services are going to make the life of the reader more efficient, or save them time, or achieve their results on what their targets are quicker. Adding numbers, emojis and symbols into your headlines can really create a it kind of, there's 2 ways to do it. You can use an emoji to highlight what the headline is saying or the subject line is saying. But using the words in brackets is really good in an email subject line, because you're giving people the idea, especially if there's a link to a video or a free report, you're summarizing the benefit to the end user in a bracket that makes them read it. Next time you see something come into your inbox, if it has something like that in it, you're much more likely to look at it because it stands out. Now, marketers ruin everything, so it's been overplayed, but used in the right circumstances, it can make a big difference. If you're talking to people offline and then you're sending them something online, it's probably going to have a better impact than just sending it cold, because they'll be expecting it from you and you're reminding them of the conversation you had. So I had a conversation with somebody yesterday who wanted me to do a video of their website, and I sent her, the thing was the subject line in the email, and then I had free video in brackets. And it was opened within 5 minutes. Now, she was expecting it, but it reminded her of the conversation, the benefit of that conversation that we'd had previous in that day. So they can work really, really impactfully, but choose your audience wisely. Yeah, don't just use them willy-nilly and put 20 smiley face emojis. Although, a headline, I would do a split test on an email with 20 smiling face emojis and just 20 smiley face emojis. Doesn't mean to say you have to do it every time, but it would be interesting to see what the open rate would be. Maybe an experiment we'll try. Yeah? Yeah? Cool. So examples are, like you can see here, video, which one deserves to die. This plays against the rest of the headline. This was for a video game. Yeah, you had to go along and shoot the bad guys and all the rest of it, and they had some sort of video footage of that. 10 headlines guaranteed to get you results. Okay, so specificity here, guarantee, talking to you. So this is sort of in all caps. You've got to be careful with all caps. Creating a headline that uses all caps is likely to be harder to read for the end user. And the reason is we read the shape of words as much as we read the letters themselves. And if you're driving on the motorway, when you look at the signs that tell you, miles to go to certain places, you'll notice they use caps and lowercase. And the reason is they're much easier to use because you're looking at the shape of the words as much as you are reading the words themselves. And this was known in the 1950s. And this was done by the people who created the road signs that became the model for the road signs around the rest of the world. They were British. It was a British woman. Fabulous. I can't remember her name. No, it's gone. But she was fascinating. I saw an interview with her. Amazing lady. But yeah, if you use all uppercase, it's much harder for people to read because they have to actually read the word rather than look at the shape of it as well. 24 rules I follow when creating successful websites. Don't share. Fantastic. Yeah, this don't share says so much. It says you're in a very elite minority. This is not public knowledge. You're part of the gang, possibly a secret. This is a great one to use. Don't share. Yes, but if it comes direct from me and I sent you something and I said don't share, wouldn't you think to yourself, oh, I'm on the inside of the red rope here? But yeah, but as I said, the caveat at the top of this is use it wisely. Yeah, don't just go out and start blanket spamming people that don't know you with that, because they're going to have that reaction. But if I sent you something, Francis, and you thought it came directly from me, yeah, and I sent you something that said, rules I follow when creating successful websites, after a conversation we had, and I put don't share in it, you're much more likely to open it. But the point to it is, don't use things because somebody at the front of a room in the suit says use these things. Use your brain and think, these are a box of tools. What tools can I use to achieve the end result that I want? Yeah. And these are just outlines and guidelines and learnings. They're not, we use them on every website every time. You have to kind of apply some kind of just base, would this fly right with my customers? And I was saying to Sue, what business owners should become is the experts in their customers. Yeah? Nobody should know your customers better than you, because you're making decisions in your business based on the reaction of those people. So you want to make sure that their reaction is always going to be, in the main, positive to what you are sending them, telling them, showing them, asking them to buy. And if they're not, you've got it wrong somewhere. Either you don't know your customers as well as you think you do, or your customers are telling you by, I'm going to use the word failing, to do what you want them to do. They're teaching you perhaps what you should be doing. So yeah, so special characters stand out, especially in a subject line, but know your audience. So what we're going to do is take a break right now, then we'll come back and we'll go through the 7 emotional triggers. Use wisely, because right now there's a load of curiosity in the room and you're more likely to come back for the second half, and we'll do the 7 emotional sales triggers. See you after the break. We're going to crack on. Sales triggers. When I started the talk, I spoke about tying into an emotion, because an emotion presents an impetus, a reason to react to something. And if you're not engaging people's emotions, then your copy is flat and dull and uninteresting. You want, when something lands in somebody's inbox or where they land on your website, for them to engage with it, properly engage with it. Because if they're not engaging with your copy, you don't have a chance to then use a call to action that makes them want to do something. It's like a springboard for the call to action, so that your copy is building up that energy for the call to action to be released. Click, and they can, yes, I agree with all of this. Oh yes, that's what I want to achieve. That emotion gives the call to action the power. Okay, so there are 7 emotional sales triggers. Good copy will contain at least one. Okay, you want for it to be really powerful, 2, possibly 3 or more, but adding 1 can really make a difference to your sales copy. Engaging readers with powerful emotions resonates in their head and makes them either want to move away from those emotions, and we'll get into that, or towards a more positive outcome. And people prefer to avoid pain than gain pleasure. Okay, it's a psychological fact that people will try to avoid a £100 loss than motivate them towards gaining £100. Okay, those two things are not the same psychologically. So the majority of the emotional triggers are resonating negative emotions in people. Now, as I said at the top of this talk, use things wisely and ethically and within your own business that resonates with you and your audience. Don't just put the fear of God into people because you can. It's not what this is about. So the 7 emotional triggers: embarrassment, emotional pain, imposter syndrome, anger, rage or resentment, the weird, fear and insecurity, and greed and laziness. Okay, those are the 7 things that are most likely to get a reaction, and you can then use to propel towards the type of action you want the person to take. So we'll go through those one at a time. So the first one, embarrassment. Okay, so people don't want to be embarrassed. Okay, social embarrassment, shame, it's a very negative emotion, and it's a very powerful negative emotion. And when you start to look at many things in society, they're based on shame, social ostracization, negative emotions surrounding being pushed out. And it comes from a time where you had to have a social group to survive. Okay? And if you weren't part of that social group, you had a much lower chance of survival. Okay? You needed a group to survive. So that's why embarrassment and social shame is such a powerful motivator. In crowds and out crowds, you look at football teams, you know, they build up huge fan bases, pop groups, people, personalities, in groups and out groups. This is all based based around social embarrassment and shame to one degree or another. So people don't want to be embarrassed, shamed, or seem foolish or appear incompetent. So you can use that in your copy by saying, you know, highlighting, does X make you feel Y? You know, people agree with that, they're much more likely to engage with your copy. This embarrassment leads to feelings of weak and impotence. People don't want to be unwanted, pitied, gossiped about, unattractive, or appear old. Yeah, there are many things in and around that where services and goods underpin their sales message by these negative embarrassment emotions. Baldness in men, you know, that is it's not. People have credited Bruce Willis for making bald men sexy. Seriously, he has been identified as one of the leading proponents of the shaved head for a bald man. So, you know, it shows that it can change, but there used to be huge social embarrassment around male baldness, male pattern baldness, and there was lots of things done by many unscrupulous people that were in and around that type of embarrassment. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, and that was using it in a humorous way. So again, it still underpinned the message, and a lot of humour is based on embarrassment and social embarrassment. Many sitcoms, situation comedies, are based on embarrassing situations. So people want to avoid criticism, social anxiety, embarrassment, social shame, and feeling stupid. And if you can highlight ways that your product, service, or business helps them avoid that, then you have a much better chance of your sales message landing and being received by the audience. Now, you have to use something that they wish to avoid, that's relevant to them and congruent to their position. But those sorts of things can be highlighted to great effect. So here is an example of perhaps one of the most famous ads that people use as examples. They laughed when I sat down at the piano, but when I started to play, yeah. So this whole idea that you're gaining some social capital by being able to play the piano, it's a very famous advert, and it's a very good example of using, are you embarrassed about your piano playing? Okay, it sold a lot of distance learning for piano tutoring courses for this particular system, and it just goes to show that it's something that doesn't actually say, are you embarrassed about your piano playing? It actually uses the social element of that to frame what happens next, because it makes the person who's reading it agree with it, that if you want to appear to be able to play the piano better, then take this course. So immediately the headline tells them that. It was used again for learning to speak French, and it was, you should have heard the laughter when the waiter began to speak to me in French, which was quieted when I answered. And immediately it's kind of the same sort of structure, and that's what a lot of great copy is using, a framework. Yeah. So when you're going out into the world and you get this junk mail, don't think junk mail. Look at it and think, how good is this junk mail? Is there anything here that, oh, that's quite interesting, especially junk mail in your industry? Yeah. Look at it with refreshed eyes about how effective it is and how you could perhaps take something they've identified and not used very well, and using what you're learning here today to improve it to your benefit. Yeah. Don't rip people's copy off. Don't plagiarize, obviously, but the underpinning framework of what is being talked about can be repurposed. Yeah, it's a little bit like the code that underpins websites. Yeah, you're not going to get told off for using that code to make your own website if your own website uses different words and pictures and look and feel. So look to see what the underpinning code is for the copy that is being used in your industry. Emotional pain. Okay, having the reader engage with an emotionally painful moment they vividly remember. Okay, this is used quite a lot by hypnotists, by CBT specialists. They get the person to think about or relive the moment that is causing them pain so that they can identify the emotions around it and work and create tools to ameliorate the effects of that emotion. Okay, and it's exactly the same thing. You're going to put together a scenario in words and pictures that makes the person go, yeah, I remember that, that was terrible, I never want to live that again. Well, use our business or use our products or services. I'm not saying go out of your way to remind people about horrible times in their life, but they sell insurance by saying to people, you know, you don't want your house burning down, your family dying. They don't couch it like that, but that's effectively how they're selling the insurance. You know, buy car insurance because it's a legal necessity, but you don't want to end up with your big, shiny, precious car being written off and not being able to replace it. So it's easy to prompt the desired reaction or action when you're able to get the person to engage with the emotion of, yeah, I remember that, oh God, yeah, it was terrible, yeah. Mr. Deadline, classic one, Mr. Deadline. If anyone has ever promised to do something and maybe it reasons out of your control, but you've missed that deadline, you just feel a bit squirmy and a bit awkward, yeah. So if your product is about helping people to achieve their deadlines, remind them of the time they've missed a deadline, because they probably have. Yeah? And if they haven't, they're probably not a good prospect, because people won't want to use your product if it helps them achieve their deadlines if they're already achieving their deadlines. It's for the people that are time crunched and, you know, missed a deadline, question mark. Ever had to explain to your boss why you've missed a deadline? Ooh, ouch. Yeah, I've been in that room, sat there, had to explain why, you know, the print didn't go off to the press, and but if you heighten the reader's sense of emotional pain, you reinforce the benefits of the business if your business services products are able to relieve or alleviate that pain. Yeah. So to find useful copy, think about users' experiences. Okay, personal stories, like I've explained. You know, times when the situation before your goods and services were brought into the world couldn't be used. Sometimes the entire reason a business exists is because something happened to somebody and they made them never to want to have to experience that again. Yeah. Great testimonials also. So your customer's like, you know, I was doing this and this came along and now I'm doing this. That's a great way to understand where those emotional pain points are. Case studies, again, you know, simply stating case studies, reading case studies, seeing what was affecting people before they started using products, again, clues you into that emotional pain. And confessions of failure, yeah, quite a lot of times, as I said, solutions to problems are born out of the problem themselves. If you don't have a problem with something, you're not going to create a solution for it. So knowing how people are failing will give you a sense of what they're feeling about that failure, and being able to write about that in an honest way that resonates with them is much more likely to say, if any of this has resonated with you, you know, please click the button and get in touch. And it gives them a Me Too feeling, right? If your business is set up to alleviate the pain of owning a website, it was because I felt the pain of owning a website. Yeah, it was the constant round of not quite knowing what I'm supposed to be doing and not liking that feeling, and I want to just get on with running my business, but in the end I ended up building websites and creating websites because so many people said, I really like what you did there, could you do that for us? And that suddenly was, instead of having a design business, I had a website business. So it was born out of the pain that small business owners had. And the amount of times I've heard, oh, I just don't understand what my technical person is telling me. You know, they're having a conversation in a language I don't understand. So I was determined to not have any part of that in my business, that if I had to use something technical, it would be for a very precise reason, and I'd explain it to the person in simple terms that didn't make them feel stupid, because we've all got to learn something at some point. So giving them that Me Too feeling allows people to go, oh, they're on my side. They understand our pain. So there's some examples. How to win friends and influence people. Right there in that title, very famous, How to Win Friends and Influence People. If you're socially awkward, if you're in business and you don't know how to get people to do what you want to do or how to influence the right people, right there, that headline tells you everything you need. Are you ashamed of the smells in your home? Okay, apparently smelly homes are a thing. People are embarrassed and afraid and ashamed to invite people back. That's why the air freshener industry is so huge. It's $1 billion plus industry, selling smells in homes and businesses. How to protect your family even when you are away from home. So that immediately is talking to the breadwinner, probably the dad in the home, about security systems. Yeah. How to protect your family even when you're away from home. It's all in there. Imposter syndrome. Now this is one I see quite a lot with small business owners. The feeling that somebody's going to find me out. I'm not worthy. Don't deserve the success that I have. Somewhere along the line, somebody's going to find me out. Okay, that's imposter syndrome. And that is not being in the know. That's not being part of the in crowd. So that goes back to that, ties into that. It's kind of subset of that. I'll be found out and therefore embarrassed. But people want to avoid being found out. They want to read copy that puts an arm around their shoulder and says, it's okay. You know, your secret's safe. We'll help you sustain the myth, as it were. And fake it till I make it is something that a lot of people feel all of the time. It doesn't matter that they have made it. I've spoken to some very successful people, and you have a conversation and the drink starts flowing and they start to confess, you know, it's all luck, it's all chance, it's all going to go away from me if I don't, you know, keep peddling hard. And the fact is that they've got 3 homes and a helicopter and all the success that around them, and you're like, if this isn't successful, then I don't know what is. But it happens. It's this imposter syndrome. So writing about it is a good way of, if it affects your target audience, of making them lean into and listen to your sales message. So how to find useful copy? Well, to create copy that sort of resonates with imposter syndrome, you've got to think like your audience. So people that I want to be like do X, so I'll do X because if I don't, the crowd I say I belong to will think I'm fake. That's the kind of thought process. And even billionaires think like this, yeah? It's why you see some very odd behaviour, because people see other people doing it in the sort of more rarefied world, billionaires move in, and then they start doing it. And you're like, really? And it's because they don't want to be found out, because other people are all looking around going, everybody else is doing that, well, I think I better do it. And you can tell somebody who doesn't know move in new social circles, they'll always be the last people to pick up their cutlery, especially at a fancy meal where there are several knives and forks. So they don't want to pick up the wrong thing. Okay? And there are coaching consultants in America that go around telling people of new wealth to interact with old wealth. Okay? Which forks to pick up, who you talk to, how you stand, how you feel. All of those things matter because these people don't want to be found out. Yeah? So what motivates your audience? You can use that to some great effect. What do they not want to happen? What are their secrets that they want you to help them with? So here's an example. This was used in an advert. The dumbest guy in high school just got a boat. I think that's fantastic. Supposedly smart. A boat is a symbol of affluence and wealth. Smart people are affluent and wealthy. This dumb guy got a boat, where's yours? Yeah, that's basically, you know, you're not part of the in crowd if you don't have a boat. Now, whether or not you agree with the motivation of that, it's irrelevant. It works for the right people in the right circumstances. Anger, rage, and resentment. Okay, so there is a lot of bubbling tension in this country at the moment. Okay, you only got to turn on a television, look at a newspaper, and they're talking about it. Okay, half the country wants to leave Europe, half doesn't. I'm not going to comment on that. But that rage and resentment isn't new. Okay, someone somewhere is angry about something pretty much 24/7. Okay, yeah, there are many different and diverse reasons, but there is a lot of anger and resentment, especially for people who feel they deserve something and they haven't got it because somebody else hasn't given it to them or is preventing them from achieving it. So you can use that, and we'll look at that in a little bit. But you can highlight it, amplify it, and grow the significance of it in the mind of the reader. Yeah, you can target it towards certain organisations. So if you're an accountancy firm and you save people tax, you could use a headline, isn't it time the HMRC stopped taking your money? Yes, bloody yes. Yeah, it is. You know, it helps you to coalesce your anger and resentment and rage around a very specific course of action. You want the HMRC to stop taking as much of your money as that? Yes, I do. Yeah. Who do I speak to? Amplifying it and growing its significance is also a good method in copy to grow that sense of inequality, that sense of frustration at. And topics that trigger that kind of resentment are global and national problems, but they can be interpersonal and familial. You know, they don't have to be massive problems. They can be tiny little problems that are like a stone in the shoe. And I think it was Gandhi. That said, if you don't believe that small things can make a big difference, you haven't tried sleeping in a room with a mosquito in it. And it doesn't matter if the problem is tiny. If you amplify the size of it and identify it in the mind of your target reader, you are much better able to then say, shall we do something about this? Yeah? You know, who's really annoyed about this? Yeah, I am. Yeah. Would you like me to help you do something? You go, damn right I would. Yeah. So how to find examples of useful copy? Let me just say, it's not about inciting violence, all right? I'm not getting you to have pitchforks and flaming torches in the street, okay? But you want to prompt positive action away from that pain by highlighting problems that the person knows about, but also think about problems they don't know they have. Okay, they might have a symptom of the problem that is causing them pain and frustration, but if you can step back and say, you know that pain and frustration over here, well that's actually caused by this, and if we can help you with this, that goes away, they're much more likely to engage with your business. Okay, and they don't have to be real problems. Okay, companies use made up problems all the time. You'll see in a minute. I've got an example. But if you engage your readers' best interests, you have a much better chance of turning that negativity into a positive outcome for you and them. Okay? And don't forget, this is about helping people. So if you can say, are you feeling frustrated and annoyed at this particular thing? The person goes, yes. Well, we can help you with that. We've got a solution to that. We can solve that problem. Yeah? For Katrine, it's, you know, going outside on a rainy day, I get wet. I can help you with that. That's a negative thing. Do you feel upset and annoyed when your fantastic hairdo gets rained on? Yeah, I do. You need one of our nice hats for your outdoor wedding event. You know, that's taking a very small thing, but you have that very real frustration of, I've gone to this thing and now my hair's ruined. So everyone has a red button. You just need to identify it and then lean on it really hard. Okay? Your copy should highlight things and make them big, not just like, you're frustrated by wet hair. You know, paint the picture. You've been invited to the wedding of the century. You turn up, you've picked the perfect dress, you've had your hair done. It's a glorious day when you step out to drive to the event, but on arrival, a rain cloud drenches everyone. But you don't care. You don't have to feel upset and annoyed with one of our hats. Boom. Polish it up, dress it up, make it feel bigger than it actually is, because the person will go through in their head, they will paint the picture in their mind's eye of that and have the emotional reaction to it. I've mentioned it once, I'll mention it again, but that's the second and only time. This is a classic example of a headline that prompted a reaction. Yeah? An anger and rage and resentment. Real or imagined, it didn't matter. That "Let's Take Back Control" is one of the all-time great headlines ever written. It was bang on its target audience. It identified that feeling under the skin of, I don't trust them, they're overseas, they're foreigners, I don't care for that, and I want us to be in control again. It was a masterpiece. Whether or not it was true, that's for a different discussion. But the actual 4 words had more impact than the rest of the campaign, because that was what they resonated everything around, and it picked up on that resentment and anger and frustration that was bubbling under. I don't necessarily need you to go out and do the same and create division in the country, but is there something that's bubbling under in your industry that people are annoyed and frustrated at that you could identify and help relieve? Are people frustrated with your industry because of certain things? That could lead to a whole new way of doing business, a whole new way of helping people. Yeah, our industry, SEO, everybody gets SEO emails from people every single day. We don't talk about SEO, we talk about content, because ultimately that's what it's about. It's about content and making people react to it. Yeah, it's not about SEO and Google and all the rest of it. That's like what the task is. I'm not selling a task, I'm selling an end result. The weird. Okay, so this one is slightly more out there, but it has resonance and it can work for specific people. So there are a lot of people who believe in secrets, conspiracies, and withheld information. Okay, they don't want you to know. Okay, they is never identified, them is never revealed, but they have secrets that they don't want you to know. And nobody wants to feel like something's going on that I'm not a part of. So the SEO, classic one of SEO is 10 SEO secrets they don't want you to know. Why do they? It's like there is, I can let you in on this secret, there isn't a secret meeting of SEO specialists deciding which secrets we'll reveal and which ones we won't. Well, if they are, they're not. I'm not in that in crowd. But the point to it is that it comes from a cognitive dissonance, okay? And it's this, that you can't hold 2 opposing and challenging pieces of information in your head and live with it happily, okay? So if you're not rich, there has to be a secret that rich people aren't telling you that are keeping you from being rich. It can't be that you're not rich because you're stupid. Okay, it can't be, because you're not. You don't believe yourself to be. So those are 2 disparate things that you make up this conspiracy. And that's why conspiracies come out. It can't just be that Elvis died in a toilet. Oh, no. There's a picture of him getting his FBI badge. It must have gone undercover. He's now doing a tribute act in Las Vegas, if you believe it. So you can use that in your copy. Again, it goes back to the anger and resentment thing. Is there a secret that people don't want you to know? Is there something in your industry which you can reveal? So to find useful copy, what does your audience believe they need? Okay, what do they believe they need but they're not getting? Can you tie this into the feeling of them being missing out or lied to by them? Okay, is there a them in your industry? Yeah. There's a lot of talk about the Codex Alimentari, is it, in Europe? And there's a whole load of stuff. You Google that, and you dive deep into the woo-woo very quickly. But there's a lot of people that believe in that kind of thing. Flat Earth. You go onto Google, go onto Facebook and type in flat Earth. Right. I did it yesterday for this. I got so angry so quickly that I ended up having to literally stop counting the number of Facebook groups for flat Earth. And there were ones like Flat Earth group, no trolls. And like the examples they give, it's like ignoring the basics of physics. But that's the point, that something like that in a rational society can still hold control over people and still offer people a way to make them feel that NASA are keeping secrets about it being a flat Earth, and all of the round Earth pictures are fake. It's just, don't. No, don't. I can't. My brain just goes. The engineering physicist part of my brain just suddenly it does get the pitchfork and the flaming torch and want to go and kick down Facebook and erase all those groups. It's like, stop being an idiot and proving to the world you are stupid.
Well, that's just put out a press release. It was just recently. They had members from all over the globe.
Yeah. It's just like one of the things that really frustrates me is when people misquote something. So they were misquoting this particular piece of information about flights. It just drove me off the deep end really quickly. So, but the point to this is, can you myth bust? Can you find truths or universally accepted truths that aren't true, that you can prove by the copy that you write, the content that you create? So there was this particular one, that sharks don't get cancer. So the theory goes that sharks don't get cancer. Okay, so if you use ground up shark cartilage in your diet, you too won't get cancer. That's why. Well, if I rub myself with feathers, can I fly? It doesn't make any sense. There is, but this sold a lot of ground up shark cartilage. Go figure. I'm not saying scam people. What I'm saying is there something that you can identify that is going on in your industry that you can highlight and say to people, if you're not happy about this, we can help you. So fear and insecurity, everybody has at least one fear, the most common of which are listed here. Fear of change, fear of loss, fear of harm, fear of a powerful enemy, fear of regret, fear of ill health and infirmity, and fear of missing out. Well, I mean, that covers pretty much majority of the fears that people have on a day-to-day basis. So you want to target your audience with the fears that they have, and the industries that do this really well, like the insurance industry does it really well. They've got more and more sophisticated with it over the years, but there used to be it was a fire alarm company in America that had what was called the crying dog video. And what they basically did was they'd get an appointment, go and sit down in these people's home, and they'd play them the crying dog video. And basically what would happen is the house would burn down, everyone would die, but the dog gets rescued. And at the end of it, there's a shot of the dog, a long lingering shot of this lassie-type dog crying. Okay, like wash through. I don't know how they did it, but it's called the crying dog video. And apparently, you know, literally grown men watching this thing, tears welling up. Oh my God, I don't want to leave my family. So, but it's a powerful emotion. Now, whether or not it's ethical to do it in that way, I don't know. But the point to it is that fear of that particular thing was a strong motivator. So what can you do in and around your business that will motivate people to have a good and positive reaction? It's used in lots of marketing. People prefer to retreat from danger, as I said at the head of this, and advance towards advantage or betterment. So can you create a fear? Now, this is a classic one. Fears can be created, such as bad breath. Listerine invented bad breath. They had this mouthwash that tasted disgusting, so the marketing agency invented halitosis. Okay, prior to 1951, I believe it was, there was no such thing as bad breath. Bad breath didn't exist. Okay, I'm not saying people didn't have bad breath, but it wasn't seen as a problem until Listerine invented it. And it was this kind of advert. Yeah, he's not going to call. And the copy basically, because you have bad breath, love. you can identify and label with your own terminology that you can then help people to identify that, yes, that's, oh, it's called that, is it? Oh, to help me with it. It can be illegal, trick people, but think about how you're going to summarize your goods and services in a way which will show people that they can relieve some of these fears and insecurities that they have. So green laziness, the last one. People want something for nothing, especially if it's money. It's been around a long time and it isn't going to change soon. The get-rich-quick scenario has been around forever. I've got a book from 1876 which is all about getting rich quick and passing it on as a legacy to your children. It's an incredible read. It is an incredible read. And it's still got lots of the same things in it that, the emotional triggers that I was talking about. Can you highlight convenience, time saving, or reduction of the audience's efforts? Yeah, this whole A/B, before and after, works really well for time saving. The process done with us, the process done without us. One's much less than the other. Which one do you want? Give us a call. And show examples. Good copy will include examples of where people have used what you've done and had good results. Okay, don't reserve your testimonials and your case studies to a specific part of your website. Use it on your sales pages. That's where it's going to be most effective. People are going to run through those list of objections. That's why we've done it. If you go to the Hub website, it's why all you wonderful people that have given us a testimonial, why we've asked for them. Because don't take our word for it. Our customers, the people who have experienced it firsthand. Yeah, there's no fear of just us saying it because we want you to do this thing. Here are the people that have experienced it. So can you get video testimonials from your customers? Can you seed them through your website? If not, can you get proper written testimonials from people that you can actually identify? And it's difficult with customers who are patients, but especially with embarrassing and awkward conditions. But you have to think about how do you do that, because people want to know that there was a successful outcome. Somebody like me did this thing and had a successful outcome. Exactly. Yeah, reviews are massive. Sprinkle them liberally through your website. Don't just reserve them to one page on your website. So to find useful copy, one of the most used headline formulas is get, lose something without the inconvenience. Okay? And you can use the taste like chicken comparison. All right? Does your service or product work like a comparable service or product? A friend of mine sold his training company, and it was like Netflix for training videos. Now, does it, exactly, I know exactly what I'm getting. It like that for that, okay? So the taste like chicken is the whole, this tastes like chicken. What's kangaroo meat taste like? Tastes like chicken. So is there something similar in another niche industry or sector or industry, or even within yours, that you are similar to or like, or you can put people have the mental image of who you are like so that they get it, yeah? So I did it at the top of the talk. The content of this talk is like, so that you got it in your, right, that was photos, this one's copy. They're two things together. It's on slide 3. So as an example is the Lazy Man's Way to Riches. This was a self-published book that was sold through this advert in many, many papers in the 1920s. Made the guy an absolute fortune. And it's still on sale today. You can still buy this. If you go to eBay and type in the Lazy Man's Way to Riches, there's many, many editions. I've got a copy of it at home. It's propping up a table. But the example here is lose something without the inconvenience. Yeah, I'm £61. weight and not feeling hungry. This kind of thing in your headline. In the upload, we give you a lot more formula, examples of things that you can use as a way to create a headline of impact. But you've got to use it ethically and responsibly. Okay, review your copy, motivate your audience with issues that are front of mind and likely to motivate them to a call to action. You've got to be authentic to your business and your personal ethics, but if you use them well, you can expect good things to happen. There is a workbook. You can work through it. The questions are based in and around this. One of the tips, and I gave it when we did the Content for Profit course, was start with the end in mind. Okay, when you write a blog post, don't start with a headline and work down. It's the worst way of doing it. Start with what you want the person to do at the end of it and work back from there. Okay, don't write your headline first. Write your copy and then work out what your biggest benefit is to your user and use that as the headline. Okay, lots of people do it the other way around. They sit there and they write out the headline, then they write out all of their copy and then put it out. But if you want to actually focus, think of it is the headline is not only an ad for it, it's a label for what's going into the content, and you can't label it until you know what the content is. Okay, so there's resources will be a Copywriting for Cash workbook, which is all of this with all of my notes. 110 headlines recipe book, which will give you 110 different examples, and emotional copy words. It's about 700 of them that you can use in your copy to trigger specific emotional feelings. Now, this is all based off of a Content for Profit, which is now a half-day training session. There are 4 modules. The content Google wants, why great content ranks well, and how to produce that. What to give your audience what they want, and writing blog posts the easy way, which one of the steps is start with the end in mind. Plus there's access to loads of free resources to implement. Katrine, you came on it, didn't you? Yes, we condensed it considerably, but thank you. Yeah, the people that have been on it said to me it was quite easily one of the most useful things that they've done. So if you would like to come along, please distribute these forms, fill them out. It also gives your website a free content review. There's an invite to the next half-day training session in June, and there's a 50% off for Hub members. It's also an invite to the exclusive Content for Profit Facebook group. All you've got to do is fill out the form and tick the box, and I will send you further information. If you've got any questions, I'm around and available to answer them. Thank you very much. That one? Cool. That'll all be sent to you, and it will be in the Facebook group. I will upload it to the Facebook group. We are working on a portal, a link for the Borden Hub website. Bye-bye, Tess. All the best. We are working on a portal where you will log in and you'll be able to access this stuff in a much more structured way. We realise that Facebook isn't ideal for both curating and searching for and engaging with content. So in light of we're delivering this program of information, we're going to be doing that in a structured way on the website as well. We've got a meeting for it this afternoon.